I work in the pro department of a home improvement company. I work the closing shift with another cashier who I'll call Nicole. Nicole's a really kind but quite timid cashier. She's also very pretty, so she has a lot of contractors hit on her. It's usually not that worrisome, though. A few compliments, maybe a dinner invite, which she'd politely decline. I would probably ask her out as well if it wasn't for one detail. Nicole does have a girlfriend, so being hit on by guys on a daily basis makes her rather uncomfortable. When we first met, I told her she ought to tell those guys about being gay, but she kept saying it wasn't any of their business, so she kept that part to herself. Nicole has become my best friend, and having another cashier there with you keeps things from getting lonely. We even cover for each other's lunch breaks. One day when I came back from lunch, Nicole started telling me about this rather creepy guy who was flirting with her. She said she politely turned him down, saying she was with someone already, and while he didn't seem happy, he did leave. I shrugged it off as nothing more than the usual horny guy and laughed it off. But later that day, the man came back. Nicole wasn't there as she had left to help a customer find some lumber, so it was just me. He looked rather normal, probably handsome to most women, but he acted off. After looking around the area, I asked him if I could help him with anything. "I'm here to see Nicole," he told me. I asked him how he knew her, and he said he had come in earlier and asked her out, to which he said yes, so he had come back in to pick her up. I told him she had left for the day, a usual lie everyone tells to cover for their friends. His smile went away as he started looking annoyed. He said he wanted to speak to Nicole and ask her out again, which contradicted what he had just told me about accepting his previous invite. I told him he could not do that, which caused him to cross his arms and ask me why not. I'm not the best liar when it comes to making up excuses on the spot. However, I didn't want to tell him Nicole was gay if she didn't want him to know, so I just blurted out that Nicole was my fiancée. His annoyed look went to confusion as he asked me how someone as pretty as she is could go out with someone like me. I told him it didn't matter and that she and I were getting married in a couple of months, so he needed to back off. He gave me a death look but didn't say anything. After an awkward silence, he left. After Nicole had gotten back, I told her what went down. She asked me to describe him, and after I told her what he looked like, she said that was the same guy who came in before. She was a bit creeped out by what went down, but found the fiancé excuse rather funny. She even stated she'd rather be engaged to me than go out with him, which I'm guessing was a compliment. A couple of weeks went by, and we had all but forgotten about the man at this point. But one night after it had gotten dark, Nicole and I were getting the trash together so we could close down the registers and go home. Just then, we hear a bang at the door, causing both of us to nearly jump out of our skins. It was the guy again. He had a wild look in his eyes as he kept his face pressed against the glass. "We're closed," I tell him, but he insists he needs to come in. Nicole yells again to tell him she's not interested and for him to go away and leave her alone. But he yells that he's not here for her. He's here for me. He then says that if he can take out her husband, then she'd be all his. Based on that, he wanted to kill me. I tell Nicole to run to the manager's office and call the police, and I'll stay here and watch him. I won't lie though, I was pretty afraid to be in that tiny little area. If the guy is able to get in, he wasn't the biggest guy, but he could have had a weapon on him. Plus, the store doesn't allow us to have self-defense items on us, so I was on my own here. The guy then started ramming the sliding doors like he was crazy. The doors were rattling. I could have sworn they were going to come off its base. Just then, Nicole comes running back around the corner with a 284 in her hand, yelling that the cops are on their way. Finally, the man decided to leave. The closing manager met the officers when they came, and he took them to review the cameras. Thankfully, the man was caught and arrested, but Nicole nor I felt safe working there any longer. We're still friends, and even attend the same college together, but we do have separate jobs now while we pay our way through classes. I'm glad she was there to help me with the rogue man, as I hate to imagine what he might have done to me, or, worse, what he might have done to her. She says she's glad I was there for her as well, as having a guy around tends to make men like him less confident in what they might try. It was a wake-up call for me as to how dangerous it can be for some girls when an interested guy just doesn't want to take no for an answer. A few months ago, a hurricane hit our town and a lot of people left because their houses were damaged. The hotel I worked at was quiet. I always worked nights from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. There weren't many guests at the hotel, and I sometimes spent the whole night without seeing anyone. There was a back room for employees with a coffee machine, fridge, and a couple of chairs. In the back was also the employee bathroom. At night, I spent most of my time there. One night, I heard a deep voice from the lobby saying hello repeatedly. I went to the front desk and saw a man on the other side of a glass barrier. He said he needed towels. I gave him some, but he grabbed them aggressively and gave me a weird look. He then rubbed the towels on his face, which I thought was strange. A few minutes later, the same man was back, saying his key card was broken. I told him our rooms didn't have letters, and he was lying. He threw the towels on the floor, smiled strangely, and got closer to the glass. He said he was going to kill me with a smile on his face. He kept repeating it louder and louder. I screamed back that I was calling the police, and I did. He just kept smiling and mocked me. The police dispatcher heard everything. When the man saw me talking to the police, he slowly walked to the door and left. The police asked if I still wanted an officer to come, but I said no since he was gone. The rest of my shift was slow. My replacement came at 2 a.m., and I clocked out to go home. As I was walking, I heard a voice from the bushes. I didn't care what it said and just walked faster. After turning onto a quiet residential street, I heard the sound of someone running behind me. When I turned around, there was a car behind me and someone hiding behind it. I heard laughing and a familiar voice saying he was going to kill me. Without even seeing him, I knew it was the man from the hotel. I looked around for an escape and saw a house with an upstairs light on. I ran to the house screaming for help. I rang the doorbell several times, but before the homeowner opened the door, the man grabbed me and started choking me. In that moment, I thought I was going to die. Then, the homeowner opened the door and yelled at the man who released me. I fell to the floor but didn't look back as the man ran away. The homeowner helped me up, gave me water, and called the police. I explained everything to the police, and they collected CCTV footage from the hotel. They also put out feelers to track the man down. Later, they called me to do a lineup, but none of the men looked familiar. In the moment, I truly didn't recognize the attacker. I hope to this day that I didn't make a mistake and let that dangerous man roam free. So this happened a little over 2 years ago now, and I wanted to share it somewhere just to look back on it one day and never forget the lesson I learned. It was 2016, and I had just started a new job at a motel. It was low pay, but I needed an office job. One of my friends, Michael, got me this job for a few days. I did training with the owner in the mornings, and for 2 nights, Michael trained me. Our job was the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. Nothing exciting, just checking guests in and doing paperwork. My boss, or the owner, went away with his wife on vacation for a week, which is attributed to the swift training I had to endure, so it was my first night alone on the night shift. There was a monitor with security cameras around the motel's property, and large glass windows all around the office building with a glass door. There was no night window like most motels have. It was fairly early in the night, about 1 a.m. I was just doing my normal check-in paperwork when a man walks in and asks if we have any rooms available. Usually if someone's sketchy, my boss has me lie and say no, but he seemed normal at the moment. Without hesitation, I said yes, of course, just for one, and he replies yes. So I begin creating the reservation on the computer when I notice he starts swatting the air and making spitting noises, as if he's being surrounded by flies. I tried to ignore it. As far as I'm concerned, it wasn't my business, so I tried to check him into the room as quickly as possible. I give him his key, and he's on his way. At this point in time, I could be described as very timid. I had a lot going on in my personal life, so I hope you can all understand my reaction to what happens next. The man comes back from his room and slams his hand on the glass door, causing me to jump, absolutely frightened. I look up to see him just staring at me. He cracks the door and puts his head through and says, "I can't get into my room. Why won't you let me into my room?" And my only defense is trying to be helpful. So I replied, "Maybe there's something wrong with your key. Let me give you another one." The look he had in his eyes was inexplicable. I felt like I was in absolute danger. I handed him his new key and he went back to his room. I tried texting Michael because he's the one who trained me, though it was in the middle of the night and he was asleep. I needed some guidance. With no reply from Michael, I noticed the man trudging down the stairs to come back. I go into absolute panic mode. I run into the back office and lock the door, and I pull out my pocket knife. It's important to keep protection when working at night. I hear the man in the office yelling, "Hello, hello, why won't you let me into my room? Do you not like me?" Me being an absolute idiot and not standing my ground and just calling the police when I'm feeling scared, I decided to take the situation on alone. I reply, "I'm just on the phone, I'll be right out." I then start calling Michael over and over for help. No answer. I decided to take a few breaths and then step out of the office. The man was not there. He was in the bathroom. I start hearing him talking to himself angrily, saying, "Kill her, kill her." My heart sank. Still being an idiot and not calling the police, he comes out, and I say, "Your key was broken. I'm sorry. Let me escort you to your room." He agrees. Thankfully, I was wearing a long-sleeved sweater, so with my arms down, I was able to hide my knife in my hand while holding it. And he seemed insistent to walk behind me. We begin making our way to the staircase and up towards his room. I was sweating from how nervous I was, continuously looking behind me to make sure he wasn't going to make a move. He stops at a room, and I stop at his room a few doors down. I smile and say, "Oh, that's the wrong room. This is your room," as it's clearly said on the door. This whole time he was going to someone else's room and trying to open the door. After letting him into his room, I quickly ran back to the office and locked the door. I found out there was a lone woman staying in the other room he was trying to get into. The next guest I checked in was a police officer from a few towns over. I felt bad for confiding in him about the guy, but he seemed willing to keep an eye and ear out. The next night, the man came back, but I had the doors locked and told him we're all booked up. I explained to my boss what happened when he got back from vacation. However, he didn't take it very seriously. I continued to work there on the night shift for the next year, where many other strange encounters have happened, but this was one of the worst.